meditation often reveals a strange paradox. Even when thoughts dissolve into silence, something remains, a lingering sense of me. But what exactly is this me? Is it an unshakable truth, or merely a mirage projected by the mind? The mind is a master architect, constructing a self-image out of memories, beliefs, and conditioned patterns. Like an unseen puppeteer, it creates an internal monologue that feels intimate and personal. Yet one crucial question shatters this illusion. Who is the mind talking to? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Surely the voice in our head is speaking to us. But if we observe closely, something unsettling emerges. There is no solid entity behind the curtain, only thought responding to thought. The mind plays both roles, the speaker and the listener, the storyteller and the audience. This self-referential loop is at the heart of the human condition. It fuels our anxieties, self-doubts, and existential dilemmas, keeping us trapped in a narrative of identity that we rarely question. If you're drawn to these questions, you're exactly where you need to be. Don't forget to subscribe and keep diving deeper. But what happens when we dare to look beyond the script? What if the I we cling to is not the ultimate reality, but a fleeting construct, an illusion woven by the mind itself? This is the journey ahead, a deep dive into the nature of self, the deceptive tricks of the mind, and the profound liberation that comes from recognizing the truth. The illusion of I is about to be challenged. Will you question it? Will you see through it? You've lived your entire life with a deep sense of me, an identity that feels solid, real, and enduring. But have you ever paused to examine what this me truly is? The mind, through a constant stream of thoughts, weaves a story of self. It creates a carefully constructed identity shaped by memories, emotions, and social conditioning. It pulls fragments from your childhood, your education, your traumas and triumphs, and stitches them together into a coherent narrative. Yet when you look closely, you might find that this me is more of a shifting mirage than a concrete truth. What you think of as yourself today is likely very different from what you believed a decade ago. Your preferences change, your values evolve, your roles transform. So if your thoughts, emotions, and self-perceptions are fluid, what remains constant? Beneath the ever-changing mental landscape, there is something else, an awareness that observes it all. Thoughts arise, emotions surge and fade, memories surface, and yet something watches, silently and without judgment. This silent witness is not bound by personal history or fleeting emotions. It doesn't engage in the drama of the mind, it simply sees. So the question then emerges: if you are aware of your thoughts, how can you be the thoughts themselves? If you notice your emotions, are you truly defined by them? Carl Jung's concept of individuation sheds light on this existential dilemma. Individuation is the process of integrating all aspects of the psyche, the conscious and the unconscious, the real and the constructed, to arrive at a self that is whole and authentic. It's not about perfection, it's about becoming real. However, most people never reach this stage because they remain trapped in the mind's version of selfhood, a false self molded by societal expectations and psychological defense mechanisms. This false self serves a purpose. It helps you navigate the world, interact with others, and maintain a sense of stability. But mistaking it for your true identity can lead to deep inner conflict as you suppress what doesn't fit the narrative you've been given. This tension builds quietly. We feel restless, incomplete. We chase validation, hoping external affirmation will settle the unease. But it never does. Because the conflict is not out there, it's within. We are divided against ourselves. The reality is that the I is not a static entity. It is an ongoing psychological process, a collection of ever-changing ideas, roles, and self-perceptions. The mind constantly reshapes its image of you, adapting to different situations. Today, you might see yourself as confident. Tomorrow, as insecure. The mind switches between these identities effortlessly. Yet something within you remains untouched by these fluctuations. That something is the deeper self, The part of you that exists beyond thoughts, beyond roles, beyond the ever-shifting sense of I. The moment you stop identifying with your thoughts and instead recognize yourself as the awareness behind them, a profound shift occurs. You no longer feel trapped by the mind's chatter, its fears, or its need for validation. You begin to see that the me is just a story, one you can observe rather than be enslaved by. And once you see through the illusion of the false self, the next question naturally arises. If you are not the mind, then who is the mind speaking to? You might believe that your thoughts belong to you, that they form a coherent dialogue, an internal conversation between different parts of yourself. But take a step back. If thoughts arise on their own, seemingly out of nowhere, and if responses to those thoughts also appear spontaneously, then who exactly is talking to whom? The mind creates a voice, then another voice to reply, spinning an endless exchange that feels deeply personal. It tricks you into believing there is an internal you who listens, decides, and interacts with this mental chatter. But is that really the case? Or is the mind simply talking to itself, sustaining the illusion of a separate self? The mind has a clever way of sustaining this illusion. A thought appears. I need to do better. Then another thought arises in response. Yes, but I've tried before and failed. Back and forth they go, giving the impression of an internal dialogue. But pause and ask, who is actually hearing these thoughts? If you sit in silence and pay attention, you'll notice that thoughts simply arise and fall away, yet no distinct listener can be found. The mind generates both the question and the answer, giving the illusion of an internal participant. The moment you see this trick, something remarkable happens. The entire structure of this imagined dialogue begins to crumble. One of the most deceptive elements in this illusion is the I thought. This thought gives the mind a reference point, a label for identity. I am thinking, I feel sad, I want something different. This I seems so natural, so fundamental, that it rarely gets questioned. But what is this I? Is it a fixed, unchanging entity? Or merely another thought, just one more mental formation, no different from any other? The mind's greatest trick is to make you mistake this label for who you really are. Yet the moment you investigate this I and try to pin it down, it disappears, like mist. The process of self-inquiry is subtle yet profound. When you ask, who is listening to the mind? An eerie silence follows. There is no listener. There is only awareness. The mind resists this realization, often responding with more thoughts, attempting to pull you back into identification. But the truth is simple. The voice in your head is speaking to no one. It is self-perpetuating noise, playing out in a loop. The problem isn't that thoughts arise. The problem is the mistaken belief that there is an actual self engaging with them. Once this illusion is exposed, a shift begins. You no longer feel as entangled in the mind's endless dialogue. Instead, you recognize that thoughts appear and disappear within awareness, but they do not belong to a separate me. This realization leads to an even deeper question. If you are not the thoughts, then what remains when thought disappears? You may have noticed that your thoughts are transient, fleeting, like clouds passing across an endless sky. They come, they go, and they change shape, often without your control, and sometimes without your consent. They can be comforting or tormenting, clear or chaotic, insightful or meaningless. But they are always moving, always impermanent. Yet beneath those thoughts, beneath the noise and narratives, something remains. Something unshaken by the mental storms that come and go. This is awareness. Awareness is not a thought. It is not a belief. It is not something you do. It is what is already here, before thought arises, during its presence, and after it fades. It is the constant, unchanging presence that observes everything. The rising of emotions, the shifting of attention, the dance of perception. And it never reacts. It never judges. It simply sees. Unlike thoughts, which fluctuate and fragment, awareness remains still. It is not pulled into the past or hurled toward the future. It does not chase answers or seek validation. It does not need fixing or improving. It is the open space within which all mental activity occurs, the backdrop to every experience you've ever had. The more you recognize this distinction, the more profound the realization becomes. You are not the storm. You are the sky. You are not the drama. You are the stage. The mind is full of noise, but awareness is the silence that gives that noise a place to echo. The key is learning to shift attention away from thought, not in resistance, but in recognition. Instead of clinging to every idea, every reaction, every mental commentary, you begin to notice them, witness them. Let them come and go like waves on the surface of the sea. You are not the waves, you are the ocean. And this shift is not about controlling thoughts, nor silencing them. It's about realizing that you are under no obligation to follow them. You are not bound to their stories. You can watch them unfold without getting caught inside. In that space of observation, something extraordinary happens. The ego, the I you've always assumed to be real, begins to unravel. It starts to feel flimsy, unstable, even illusory, because that's exactly what it is. The ego is not a thing. It's a thought pattern, a recurring habit of identification. It exists only through repetition. The ego thrives on separation. It says, I am here, the world is out there. I am this, not that. But awareness has no such divisions. In pure awareness, there is no border between you and the world. There is only presence. When thoughts lose their grip, so does the ego. And when the ego dissolves, you're left with what has always been present, the formless awareness of being itself. This is not emptiness in the hollow sense. It is emptiness in the Zen sense. Empty of false identity, full of possibility. It is the peace that does not depend on circumstances, the stillness that cannot be shaken, the being that precedes becoming. And this peace is not theoretical, it is practical. It can be felt while walking down the street, while listening to someone speak, while doing absolutely nothing. It is not reserved for monasteries or mountaintops. It is available now, wherever you are. You don't need to meditate for hours to access it. You don't need to adopt a new belief system or fix yourself. All that's needed is a gentle remembering, a return to what has always been quietly present behind the noise. The practice is simple. Observe. Observe without judging, without grasping, without rejecting. Each moment becomes a doorway back to awareness. With time, this becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of being. Life starts to look different, not because the world has changed, but because your lens has cleared. You begin to relate to experience with spaciousness. You feel emotion without drowning in it. You hold thoughts lightly instead of clinging. You act from presence instead of egoic reaction. And in that shift, there is a quiet revolution. You no longer feel like a separate self navigating life. You feel like life itself, unfolding. This recognition of pure awareness is not the end of the path. It's the beginning. From this foundation, deeper dimensions of inner truth become accessible. More subtle illusions begin to reveal themselves. And with each layer you peel away, a greater clarity emerges, a kind of sacred simplicity. As this awareness stabilizes, life stops being something to survive and becomes something to see, something to feel, something to be. You are not your name. You are not your story. You are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness that sees it all, and in that awareness, you are already free.